They told me not to answer the phone after midnight, but it kept ringing, louder and more desperate with each ring. When I finally picked up, a voice whispered, "He's in the vents." And that's when I heard the dripping, right above me. The job offer came at the right time. I had just been let go from my third gig in 6 months. Bills were stacking up, and I needed anything. Even if it meant mopping up oil and scraping grease off garage walls in the middle of the night. Smith's Garage, the flyer had read. Now hiring, night cleaner. Great pay. Quiet work environment. Must be comfortable alone. Sounded easy. Too easy. The place was on the edge of town, far from the highway. A rusted-out sign hung above the entrance, half-lit and buzzing like a mosquito in a tin can. I arrived just before midnight. The cold November air had teeth, biting into my skin as I stepped out of my old Honda Civic. The garage looked abandoned, but a single hanging bulb flickered above the office door. An old man with a crooked smile greeted me. "You're the new cleaner, huh?" he said, pushing a clipboard into my chest. "Name's Harold Smith. My family's owned this place for 60 years. Place gets messy, even when we're closed. You keep it clean and follow the rules. We won't. Have any problems?" "Rules?" I asked, flipping through the clipboard. His eyes darkened. "They're in there. You'll want to memorize them. Don't ignore them. They are necessary." I didn't ask more. I should have. I signed the forms. He handed me a ring of brass keys, and without another word, he walked off into the dark. Alone now, I opened the clipboard. There were only 2 sheets of paper inside. One was a checklist of cleaning duties: sweep the bays, mop the floor, take out the trash, refill the rag bin, clean the restroom. The other was titled, in bold red ink, "Rules for night cleaner at Smith's Garage: do not arrive before 11:55 p.m. Never unlock bay door number 3. No matter what you hear inside. At exactly 12:30 a.m., turn off the vending machine. Leave it off. If the office phone rings after midnight, let it ring. Do not answer it. Do not look into the mirror in the restroom. Keep your eyes down. If you see a man in blue coveralls standing in bay 1, do not approach. Back away slowly and leave for 15 minutes. At 2:45 a.m., sweep in a counterclockwise direction only. Always check the vents for blood. If you see any, burn the rag used to clean it. Do not throw it in the bin. Never speak to the little girl. Leave before 5 a.m. sharp. If you hear the bell ring after 5, you've stayed too long. I stared at the list, blinking. I almost laughed. This had to be a joke. A hazing ritual, maybe. Some kind of weird small-town prank. But something about the look in Harold's eyes when he handed me the clipboard. It told me he believed every word. I pocketed the rules and stepped inside. The interior of the garage was colder than the night air. The smell hit first: oil, gasoline, mold, and something faintly metallic beneath it all. The main bay stretched out in front of me, cluttered with rusted tools and car parts. A classic muscle car, stripped down to its skeleton, rested on a lift like a corpse mid-autopsy. A row of grimy vending machines stood in the back corner, humming softly. I began with the easy stuff: sweeping, mopping, clearing out the overflowing trash bins. The place looked like it hadn't seen a mop in years. The grime was caked on like dried blood. It was 12:28 a.m. when I heard it. A click from across the room. I looked up and saw the vending machine flickering. I remembered the rule. At exactly 12:30 a.m., turn off the vending machine. Leave it off. I walked over. The hum got louder as I approached. The buttons began to light up randomly. One of the coin slots started leaking what looked like black sludge. My hands trembled as I reached behind the machine and flipped the power switch. The humming stopped. The lights died. I took 2 steps back and waited. Nothing. I exhaled and turned back to the floor. Then the office phone started ringing. I froze. The shrill tone cut through the silence, echoing through the cavernous room like a scream in a crypt. It rang once, twice, 3 times. I tried to ignore it. 0.4, 5, 6. I counted out loud to calm myself. 0.7, 8, 9, and then a wet sound. Drip, 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 coming from above me. I looked up. A dark stain spread slowly from the vent overhead, viscous and thick. It dripped to the concrete below in heavy plops. I pulled the rag from my belt, hesitated, then wiped the puddled, smeared crimson across the floor. Blood, no doubt about it. I turned to toss the rag in the trash, but the rules screamed in my head. If you see any blood in the vents, burn the rag. Do not throw it in the bin. I shoved the rag into a metal barrel near the back, doused it in cleaning fluid, and set it alight with a flick of my lighter. The flames hissed, dancing violently as the rag burned. The phone rang again. I couldn't help it that I walked to the office and picked it up. My hand trembled against the receiver. I said nothing. A moment of static. Then, he's in the vents. The line went dead, and in the silence that followed, I heard scratching, like fingernails dragging across aluminum, coming from the vent right above the office door. I didn't sleep when I got home after that first night. My head was spinning, filled with rules and voices and blood. I sat on the couch with all the lights on, the rag's burning smell still clinging to my clothes like a warning. No one answered. When I called the number Harold had scribbled on the clipboard, I wasn't even sure I wanted anyone to answer. By 10:30 p.m., I was already getting dressed again. I didn't want to go back. I told myself I wouldn't. But something pulled at me, something deeper than fear. Curiosity. The kind of curiosity that gets people killed in horror movies. I couldn't shake the voice from the phone. He's in the vents. It had sounded so close, almost like someone whispering in my own head. This time when I pulled into the gravel lot at Smith's garage, I waited in the car, watching the building like it was alive. At 11:54 p.m., I stepped out. The moment I unlocked the door, that same cold blast of air greeted me like a breath from a tomb. I paused in the doorway, staring into the darkness of the garage before stepping inside. I clicked on the overhead lights. They flickered before buzzing to life. The clipboard still sat on the wall hook near the time clock. I looked at the rule sheet again. My eyes focused on rule number 2. Never unlock bay door number 3. No matter what you hear inside. I didn't think much of it last night. Tonight, I felt the weight of it. The bay doors lined the far wall, 3 massive rolling steel gates that led to repair pits and storage. Bay 1 was where the muscle car sat. Bay 2 looked empty. Bay 3 was different. The chain across its entrance was newer. It had a massive, rust-colored lock that looked recently oiled. There was something unnatural about that door. It had no windows, unlike the others. Just solid, old metal that looked like it had been bolted shut from the inside. That I made the mistake of getting too close. Not even a full 10 minutes into my shift, and bay door number 3 knocked. Point 3 slow, deliberate knocks. Thud. 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 It wasn't. When it wasn't a loose hinge. It was something. Inside. My chest seized up. I stepped back so quickly I almost tripped over the mop bucket. I stared at the door, not breathing. The air around me felt thicker, heavier. The knocking stopped, and I waited. 5 seconds. 10. A minute. Nothing. Just when I started to back away, I heard something new, breathing. Not mine. Heavy, wet, rasping breath from behind bay door. #3. Something alive. I turned and walked away. I ran into the office, slamming the door behind me. I sat at the desk, trying to calm myself, trying to remember what Harold said. Keep it clean. Follow the rules. We won't have any problems. But we did have problems, because when I checked the security monitors, 8 old black and white screens stacked in a dusty rack, I saw something standing in bay 1. Rule number 6. If you see a man in blue coveralls standing in bay 1, do not approach. Back away slowly and leave for 15 minutes. He was there, right in the middle of the bay, facing away from the camera, completely still. My first instinct was to investigate, but the rule rang in my skull like a fire alarm. I backed away from the office door, grabbed my jacket, and walked outside. I sat in my car, locked the doors, and stared at the garage's shadowy outline for exactly 15 minutes. When I returned, the man in coveralls was gone. The security footage rewound itself. Literally, the old tapes inside the machine spun in, reverse without me touching them, and when they played again, bay 1 was empty. The machine hissed and popped like it had short-circuited. I forced myself to keep working. Sweeping, refilling soap, restocking rags. Everything seemed calm until 2:45 a.m. I looked at my watch. 2:44.1 minute. I picked up the broom and walked toward bay 2. I remembered rule number 7. Sweep in a counterclockwise direction only. Weird detail. But whatever. I started in the far corner and swept carefully, my steps tracing a wide circle around the room. That's when I noticed the girl. She stood by the tool chest. Pale skin, dirty blonde hair, a red balloon in her left hand. Her eyes didn't blink, her mouth didn't move. She just stared. I froze mid-sweep. Rule number 9. Never speak to the little girl. Her eyes met mine. I looked away. She took a step forward. Her shoes didn't make a sound. I could hear the balloon squeaking in her hand as it bounced gently, but her feet were utterly silent. She stepped again and again. Closer. I dropped the broom and stepped backward. She mimicked me, step for step. Then I remembered. Never speak to her. I closed my eyes. 1 second. 2. 5. When I opened them, she was gone. But the broom wasn't where I dropped it. It was standing straight up in the center of the garage, balanced perfectly on its handle. I didn't touch it. I grabbed another rag and went to wipe up some oil near the compressor. But when I turned around again, every broom in the garage, all 5 of them, were standing upright, side by side. No wind, no vibrations, no logic. The garage was silent again, until the knock came. Thud, thud, thud. Bay door. #3. Louder this time. Faster. And then, a whisper behind me. She's inside now. I spun around to N01 there, but I wasn't alone anymore. The lights in the garage flickered violently. The temperature dropped like a basement freezer. Every breath came out as fog. My fingers trembled as I reached for the keys. I wanted out. Then, a scream from the office. The sound of something slamming into the desk, shattering glass, ripping through drawers. I rushed over and threw the door open. Empty, but the rule sheet was gone from the clipboard. In its place was a new paper, handwritten in jagged red ink. Updated rules for night cleaner. Rule number 1 has changed. Now arrive after 12:05 a.m. Not before. Bay door number 3 is not locked anymore. Do not open it. The man in coveralls will knock next time. Do not open for him. The little girl can follow you home now. Leave by 4:44 a.m., not 5 o'clock. If the mirror calls your name, cover it with a black cloth. Don't check your reflection after hearing the chimes. If the rag burns blue, it's not blood. It's something worse. I dropped the paper. My hands were shaking. None of this made sense until the clock on the wall struck 4:44. In reverse, the numbers spun backward, blinking red. Alarms that didn't exist went off around me. Lights died all at once, and the last thing I heard before the garage plunged into pitch black, a little girl's voice whispering in my ear, "You opened it." The silence after she whispered those 3 words, "You opened it," was worse than the noise that I didn't remember opening bay door number 3. I didn't have time to. I would have known if I had, wouldn't I? But as the power failed and darkness flooded the garage like black water, I stood motionless with my back pressed against the wall, holding the lighter in my palm, shaking too badly to strike it. From the other end of the garage came a sound I'd only heard once before in my life. Metal screeching against metal, like a rusted gate being torn open by something with no regard for hinges. It was the door, and this time, it wasn't knocking. It was opening. The rules had warned me, but now they were changing on their own. The clipboard was gone. The paper I'd read had vanished into ash, as if it had never existed. And still, my watch kept ticking in reverse. 4:43.4:42. Each second crawling backward instead of forward, as though time itself didn't apply inside Smith's garage anymore. And then, the chimes, soft at first, distant, like an ice cream truck in the middle of a snowstorm. But they grew louder, sharper. My ears rang as the sound came not from outside, but inside. The mirror. I shouldn't have looked. I knew better, but some part of me wanted proof. Something tangible. Some reassurance that I wasn't just losing my mind. I walked into the restroom. Cold air gusted out as if the room had been sealed in a glacier. The mirror above the sink was fogged, except for the center. A perfect oval cleared away like a peephole, and in it, not me, someone else. He looked like me at first glance. Same build, same uniform, but his eyes were black pits, lidless and unblinking. His jaw hung slack like it was broken. His shirt was soaked in something dark, and in his hand was a wrench, rusted, bloodied, familiar. He raised his hand in the reflection and waved. I stepped back in horror, but the mirror me didn't. He stayed, close to the glass, fingers now tapping gently on the inside. I scrambled for something, anything, to cover the mirror, but I was too slow. The chimes hit a high-pitched climax, and the mirror shattered outward, glass raining like knives. I dove, landing hard on the tile floor. A shard slashed my forearm, warm blood soaking my sleeve. When I looked up, the mirror was whole again, but my reflection was gone. I didn't see myself. Just the bathroom, empty, Except, it wasn't in the mirror. The door slowly creaked open, despite the real one behind me staying shut. A figure entered. The man in the reflection. He stood behind where I should have been, watching me from within the mirror world. Smiling with a mouth that was far too wide. I staggered out of the restroom, clutching my bleeding arm, and slammed the door. But the mirror wasn't done. From within, I heard it whisper my name. Not once, not even twice. I chanted it. Zane, Zane, Zaon. I'd never told anyone at Smith's garage my name. Not Harold, not anyone. I bolted for the office, locked the door, and checked the security monitors. One by one, they began switching channels on their own. Static, then bay. 3 then static again. Then, the parking lot.my car was gone, and in its place, a long, black hearse. No driver. Engine off. But exhaust rising like breath in the cold. I was trapped. I thought of the keys. The ring Harold gave me. I fumbled with them, trying each one on the office drawer, the desk cabinet, anything that might give me access to something that could help. One key finally clicked. A drawer slid open with a metallic rasp. Inside, a black cloth, a revolver with 2 bullets, a tape recorder, and a yellowed note that read, "In case of reflection breach, do not speak to your mirror self. Do not accept anything it offers. Do not, under any circumstances, let it cross into your world. If you are already bleeding, it can track you. Use the cloth to cover any mirrors. If you hear the word reverse, fire immediately." The last line was underlined twice. I stuffed the cloth into my pocket, grabbed the gun, and turned on the tape recorder. Static at first, then Harold's voice. "If you're hearing this, it means the shift's gone bad. Real bad. And if that bastard in the glass is moving, it means the seals have broken. You probably opened Bay 3, even if you didn't mean to. It's not your fault. It wants out. Always has. Just remember, the rules are like a contract. You follow them, you live. You slip, and you start feeding it. And Zane, if you're bleeding, the tape cut off. If you're bleeding." I looked at my arm. The cut had stopped bleeding, but a black residue clung to the wound. Not scabbed, not dried blood. It looked like ink. The lights in the office dimmed. The phone rang. Not the one on the wall. This time, the old rotary phone on the desk. The one I hadn't noticed before. The one that hadn't been there last night. Ring. Ring. I picked it up. The voice that answered wasn't Harold. It wasn't human. It gargled, snarled, whispered in reverse. "Zane, reverse, reverse." I dropped the phone. The mirror in the office, one I'd never noticed, began melting. The glass ran like wax, forming a bubbling pool on the desk. From the pool, hands emerged, fingers, long, jointed wrong, covered in oil and soot, grasping the wood, pulling a body upward. The man in the mirror was coming out. His grin split his face, cracked his cheeks. His eyes poured black liquid down his chin. He said nothing, but his body twitched like a puppet on rusted strings. I raised the revolver. My hands shook. 1 bullet in the chamber. He stepped forward. "Reverse," he mouthed. I fired. The mirror shattered. Vanished. The gun clattered to the floor. I ran out of the office, breath ragged, blood smearing every doorknob I touched. I needed to get out, but something had changed in the garage. All the bay doors were open. Behind each, a different scene. Bay 1, my apartment, empty, but the lights flickering. Bay 2, a hospital room. Me, strapped to a bed. Bay 3, blackness. Total, but not empty. Something moved in the dark, breathing in time with my heart. I turned away. The vending machine sparked. The bathroom door swung open by itself, and from the mirror, inside that cursed restroom, the final message was written in red. For 44 a.m. is a lie. The real deadline was yesterday. Then, the little girl's voice again. She stood in the center of the garage now. Her eyes were bleeding ink. "Your reflection," she whispered, "isn't in the mirror anymore." There's a moment when your body knows something your mind refuses to accept. As I stood frozen in the center of Smith's garage, watching the ink-blooded little girl smile beneath the flickering lights, I realized that moment had passed a long time ago. My mind knew now. Knew that time was broken. That reality had slipped off its hinges. That I was inside something that wasn't a garage anymore. Something that wore the shape of a garage the way a predator wears its prey's skin. I had broken the rules. Maybe not on purpose, but that didn't matter. The rules weren't suggestions. They were containment protocols. And now, everything was getting out. The little girl floated slightly above the oil-streaked concrete, the balloon in her hand now gray and pulsing like a beating heart. She pointed at me with one delicate finger. "You were supposed to leave before 4:44. She whispered that I checked my watch. It was 12 o'clock again. Midnight, but not the first midnight. The watch blinked. 12:00, then 12:01, then 12:02. I watched the numbers climb, but the sky outside the garage never changed. It remained dark, starless, motionless, like someone had painted the night and forgotten to add the moon. And the rules had rewritten themselves on the walls. Bright red letters, smeared and dripping, formed one by one across the cinder blocks. The final rule: you do not leave Smith's garage. Smith's garage leaves you. The lights exploded. Above me in bursts, raining sparks. Somewhere deep in the vents, a gurgling growl echoed, the same sound I'd heard on the phone that first night. I ran past the silent vending machine, which now displayed random symbols where the product names should be. Past the bay doors, which had gone completely black behind their steel curtains. I sprinted toward the front entrance, but it was gone. The garage door had been replaced by a solid wall of mirrors. Not one, but hundreds, all different sizes, all reflecting warped, hellish versions of me. Some smiling, some crying, some screaming silently. But one of them, a version of me wearing that same uniform, eyes solid black and blood running from. His nose just stood there, unmoving. I turned away and stumbled back into the center of the garage. That's when I saw Harold. He stood beside the charred remains of the rag barrel, smoking a cigarette like this was just another night shift. "What the hell is happening?" I shouted. He exhaled a slow plume of smoke. "You weren't supposed to answer the phone." "I didn't mean to." He shrugged. "Don't matter. That place, Bay 3, been sealed since '79. You cracked it open. Not all the way, but enough to leak. Enough to draw him out." "Him? Who?" Harold didn't answer. Instead, he nodded toward the vent above me. Something was crawling. Its body twisted and pulled itself inch by inch along the vent grates. It wasn't natural, limbs too long, joints bending the wrong way. No eyes, just a mouth that stretched the length of its face. I remembered the rules. Check the vents for blood, but the vent didn't drip blood anymore. It whispered it. Each droplet hit the floor like a word. "You shouldn't be here." I backed away and turned to Harold. "Tell me how to stop it." He finally looked me dead in the eyes. "You don't. You follow the rules and survive. But once you break him," he tapped his chest, "it marks you, becomes a part of you." The floor under my feet cracked. A black vine, pulsing like veins, slithered from the concrete and wrapped around my ankle. Harold didn't move to help. In fact, he stepped back into the shadows and vanished. I reached for the revolver again. Only one bullet left, and the word from the note echoed in my head. "Reverse." The black vine pulled tighter, yanking me toward the heart of the garage. The lights surged and blew out again, plunging me into pitch blackness. All I could hear now was the scratching, the vents creaking, the mirrors groaning. Then, laughter from every direction. Children's laughter, mixed with sobbing, mixed with the mechanical clicking of typewriters, mixed with my own voice saying my name backwards. Inaz, Zane. And then I was there, facing the mirror man again. He was standing at the center of the garage, beneath the hanging light bulb that shouldn't have been on. His smile reached his ears. This time, he held out something, a set of brass keys. Mine, the ones Harold gave me, but they were twisted now, bent into the shape of symbols I couldn't comprehend. He spoke one word: trade. "No," I said, raising the gun. He cocked his head. I thought of the rules again. The rules no longer written on paper, but now etched in my mind. Especially the final update. If the rag burns blue, it's not blood, it's something worse. The rag I'd used earlier had burned blue. That meant what was in me now wasn't blood anymore. I was becoming one of them. One of it. I aimed the gun, not at the mirror, at my own reflection. It was the only way. "Reverse," I whispered, and pulled the trigger. The sound was deafening, but instead of pain, I felt release. The mirror shattered in every direction. The vines loosened, the darkness recoiled, and for the first time in what felt like days, I saw light. A faint glow emerging from the center of the garage. A way out. I stumbled toward it, vision tunneling. The little girl stood at the exit, no longer smiling. "Leave," she said softly, "and don't come back. You only get one exit." I stepped through the glow, and I was standing outside Smith's garage, the sun rising behind me, the sign flickering one last time before dying forever. That was a week ago. Since then, I've quit every job offer I've received. I don't leave my house after dark. I've covered every mirror in my apartment with thick black cloth, but sometimes, at night, my TV turns itself on, and it shows a feed out of Smith's garage, still running, still cleaning, and once, just once, I saw myself on the screen, still inside, still mopping, still bleeding ink. Asterisk, they say if you drive past Smith's garage at midnight, the lights still flicker on. You might hear a mop dragging across concrete, even when no one's inside. And if you look into your rearview mirror, you might catch a glimpse of yourself, still trapped in there, cleaning forever. Or if you prefer a short, punchy outro line that hits hard. Final line. You don't leave Smith's garage. Smith's garage leaves you.